And one of the most important shifts, I think, that is made when we realize this and when we're healing in this way is realizing that we're not becoming a new person. We're not completely building a new personality, becoming someone else entirely. We're actually learning something that can feel harder. I'm just going to be honest. It's difficult at times to get to know that person who has been there all along, who has been the one experiencing the hypervigilance and the overthinking and the survival strategies. And that's the person, that's the you, the self that has been waiting to be listened to and understood and attuned to and validated and seen. And that can feel shameful. Hey there, and welcome to the Reclamation Room. I'm Ashana, and I'm so glad you're here. This is a space for women reclaiming themselves after narcissistic abuse. If you've ever felt like you were too much, not enough, or both at the same time, you're in the right place. I created this podcast because I know what it's like to lose yourself in overgiving, overperforming, and still wondering why it never felt like love. I've walked through trauma, toxic relationships, and the long road of self-reclamation, and I'm here to walk with you. In this podcast, we'll explore what it means to come home to yourself after the confusion and chaos of narcissistic abuse. Some episodes will be solo, others will include guest interviews. All of them will be honest, grounded, and deeply compassionate. So, whether you're just realizing what you've lived through, or you've been on this path and you're ready for the next layer of your healing, you are welcome here. This is not about perfection. This is about reclamation. Welcome back to the Reclamation Room, the podcast for women healing from narcissistic abuse. This is going to be an interesting episode comparatively to the past. I actually posted an Instagram post recently where I was talking about myself saying and hearing other people saying, I just want to be normal. And I shared in the Instagram post that a lot of times when we say that, we're not really speaking to an actual inadequacy that we have, even though it might feel like that's what it is. I think what we're actually speaking to in those moments is a very specific form of grief. And as someone who grew up with a very traumatic childhood, abusive dynamics, and of course, narcissistic patterns in my relationships, I feel like there's a lot of things that I have had to grieve, but I didn't really notice that it was grief in the moment. A lot of times it would be covered over by anger or by indignation or this feeling of justification that what I wanted, it was something that I should be wanting, and it just wasn't fair that I had it. And it finally hit me that all of these things are their own type of grief. And so this feeling of wanting to be normal, I think that a lot of times we might say this in moments when we feel small, moments when it kind of feels more like a confession than a dramatic outburst. And I think it's a sense of longing that we feel like I wish that I could just show up the same way that I see other people showing up. That can be kind of an embarrassing thing. You know, it feels dramatic, but I think it's very real. And I think it's something that shows up when we realize that life has felt a lot harder for us than it seems to be for other people. So for me, I know that I grew up watching other kids my age be able to do things that to them were completely normal. There's a situation that really stands out to me. I think I've actually spoken about it on here before. When other girls were at the middle school dance and they were able to laugh and joke and scream and be loud. And I thought that was crazy. I had never been like that before. Other times would be when I've seen people trust their own instincts or make decisions without spiraling and having decision anxiety, or maybe watching other people in relationships being able to just trust what was told to them and know that they were getting the truth of a situation. So I had this feeling growing up of what is it that comes so naturally to them but is so confusing for me? Why am I so lacking here? What is it that other people have that I don't have? And I know that a lot of times when I take personal situations and bring them here to the podcast, personally, I feel like, you know, maybe I'm projecting onto other people. I don't ever want to fill in the blanks with what other people might be feeling. But I think that some of these things that I've experienced are more normal than maybe I thought. I think other people might have gone through something like this. And I think this feeling of, I wish that I could just be normal. I think that it has a lot more to do with our development as a human and our sense of safety and how our brain is actually learning to navigate relationships that haven't been normal for us in the past. And I say, quote, normal to mean so when people are saying, I just wish that I could be more normal, I think that what we, and I say we because I did this too, I think what we might actually be saying underneath that is, I wish that I could trust myself to make decisions. I wish that I could just act in the moment and not spiral about it. I wish that I could stop replaying conversations in my head for hours or second guessing the things that I said, wondering if I misunderstood or if someone misunderstood me. I wish I could feel like human interactions and relationships are not these puzzles that I have to constantly be a step ahead or trying to solve or figure out. I wish that my nervous system could just calm down and feel safe right now. I wish that I could move through life with a sense of a steady ground beneath me instead of constantly having to shift and worry about what's next. And I think that for someone who grew up in a stable environment and has had solid relationships to depend on and model their future self after, I think that these are things that develop a little bit more naturally. And that's not to say that, those people did not have anything bad happen to them. I think that there are varying degrees of these situations developing for people. And I compared myself to people who seemed like they had it a little bit more together than me. And this even goes into, I think this could be another episode, but a feeling of like being dirty all the time. And I associated that with not being taken care of as a child. I think that we could look at how people are cared for and how they're held and nurtured and see what naturally develops from there and use that to look back at ourselves and our past and what we did or didn't get that we may still be grieving now. And that's okay. It's not to blame anyone for anything, but what can we start giving ourselves now? And I think that children learn something early on in life that is really, really important that I know I missed out on. And this is that their internal signals matter very much. They're very important. They are your guidebook for how you go through life. And so if a child feels scared, it's very important that they know that someone is going to be there to help them understand why, or at least feel like it's okay to feel that way and to feel like they're not alone. If they're upset, it's so important that someone is there to help them process that. Or if they make a mistake, they're not going to be shamed for it. And someone is going to show them it's okay to make mistakes. You don't have to be perfect. And so this will help them feel guided and protected, but also capable and worthy. And I think this is very important. I think over time, this that we're talking about here, this is what helps the brain start to build an internal mapping of yourself and of the world and of others that is secure and that is safe. And this is our working model of how the world works. And so we form beliefs based on this. We form the knowledge or the trust that people mean what they say, and we can rely on that. And we also learn that my feelings that I'm having are useful information for me and that I can make mistakes and still be okay and still be wanted. And also that my instincts are something that can guide me and I can make decisions from there. And even if it's the quote wrong decision, I trust myself or I trust my environment to know that I'm going to be okay and I can learn from there. And so this internal map that we've built as children becomes our foundation for self-trust. When someone grows up in an environment that is chaotic or unpredictable or even just emotionally confusing, not stable, I think the brain learns something completely different. And instead of learning how to understand self, we often learn how to understand or categorize or catalog everyone and everything else around us. And this is really important to look at how the brain is actually working here, because as humans, we are designed to learn through relationship. This is one of the most important processes that we have, and this is what a lot of people know as the attachment system. It helps us as children learn who is safe, who is going to respond to me when I need help, and ultimately what's going to happen when I express my emotions. And so when the signals that we get from these actions are consistent, our nervous system learns to relax. It learns to feel safe and to process in the natural way that we process. And when we have that sense of safety, the brain can then kick on this higher level of learning. We can kick on this higher level of finding identity and being curious and exploring. But if the environment around us is remaining unpredictable or unstable, that higher learning doesn't really kick in so much as a threat detection system. And so the part of our brain that's responsible for being the alarm system for us, hey, we're not safe here, that part, the amygdala, actually becomes extremely active and it stays in a state of scanning for danger. And our nervous system is extremely effective at what it does. And so if we have learned that in order to stay safe and have consistency, we need to start reading these subtle cues, noticing when someone's tone changes, noticing when their facial expression changes or the energy shifts in the room. We get really good at that. Even as children, we are very perceptive. We can sense when the tension in the room changes almost instantly. We can sense when someone is about to become angry or when something is about to go wrong and it hasn't yet. And this is a massive form of emotional intelligence. It is. It's not a bad thing that we have that. But when we've had to do that more than we've been allowed to feel safe and secure, that comes with a cost to our system because our development is being organized around managing other people, managing the environment, instead of being curious and exploring and discovering ourselves and learning how to view the world through our own emotions and our own meaning making. And so I think it's really important to note that this makes sense, but also to note that we can carry these patterns for years without realizing that we've done it. And, we see this on social media all the time. We become the helper, we become the peacemaker, we become the people pleaser, the emotionally aware friend that's constantly feeling like a therapist to everyone. We're the person who understands everyone. We're a highly sensitive person. But eventually there does come a moment for all of us in these places where something eventually clicks. And that might be after we've left a really confusing relationship. It might be during a therapy session or when we finally get to a healthier environment and everything is calm and quiet and we realize, I definitely know how to read everyone else. I know how to attune to everyone else. I know how to make sure that everyone else's needs are met. But I don't feel like I actually know how to do that for myself. Or when I do start doing that for myself, I feel guilty, or I feel like there's something wrong with me, or I'm not acting the way everyone else is acting, and maybe I'm too much. Maybe I actually am broken. And I feel like that realization is what brings on this grief. And the truth here is that obviously there's not something wrong with you. It's that there was something really important that you needed that was missing to some degree, even if it was a small amount during your development. And so this could have been guidance from someone who somewhat knew the way a little bit better than you and could guide you in that way. This could be emotional stability. This could be someone even helping you understand your own internal world and not feeling like you're completely alone in it. And so when people say, or even when I have said, like, I just want to be normal, I think what we're actually saying is that I wish I had learned how to trust myself and be okay being me earlier in life. And that feels a lot like I need to change myself to be better and to fit in here. And I think that's why it's grief, because we're grieving what we didn't have the chance to develop and learn about ourselves in the first place. And this is actually a really common struggle that I hear in varying degrees. A lot of times it's I overthink every little thing, or I feel anxious about small choices. I need constant reassurance. I look to the other person for validation that they still care about me. And there's actually a good explanation for this that makes a lot of sense. Our decision making relies heavily on the prefrontal cortex, the place of our brain that makes logical decisions. It gives us our reasoning, our planning, our ability to evaluate and assess the situation. And when our nervous system is calm, the prefrontal cortex does its job. It does a great job. Our brain is amazing. But if we're in a place of sensing threat, like we talked about earlier, our nervous system is actually going to shift toward more of a survival mechanism than a logical decision making and meaning making mechanism. So that amygdala that we talked about before becomes way louder than everything else. And so the body realizes, okay, I need to prepare for danger here. So the brain isn't asking questions like how to connect better with others or how to be aligned with my authentic values or what is this going to mean for my future. The brain is going to say things like, what if something goes wrong? What if I miss a cue? What if I make the wrong move? What do I need to do right now, next, immediately? And so for someone who spent years and potentially decades navigating relationships that were unpredictable, unstable, even abusive, our brain learned something very important. Mistakes that we make, or even that others make, and again, we can look at the micromanaging that I've had in the past, the nagging, right? The criticizing. Mistakes that I made, or even mistakes that I perceive others making, have big consequences. And if I misread the room or misread this person, that could be dangerous. I could get hurt. If I trust the wrong person, they're going to let me down again and I'm going to get my heart broken. And so the brain is going to try to protect. That's what it does. It keeps us alive. It keeps us safe. It keeps us able to keep eating and reproducing and being here, populating the world. And so we start analyzing everything. And from the outside, this looks like anxiety. But from the inside, what we're feeling, yes, of course we have anxiety. And that's talked about enough, I think, that we know this now. But talking about what it actually feels like, it feels like a lot of responsibility. It's heavy. And so side note here, I just want to share that when I started working on all of this stuff for myself, everyday chores and even like being a mom, like these are that we have to do that take a toll on us with a mental load. And if we're not careful and if we're not having the self-care and the self-awareness of where we're at with our capacity, those things are very heavy. And so we can grow resentful of those things too. And that's not to judge or say like we're a bad mom if we feel that way. Like it's the truth. It is what it is. And I think it's okay to admit to these things sometimes too. Because there was a time when responsibilities, like especially household chores, felt very heavy for me. And of course, I had to do a lot of chores as a kid, and I'm over it. I'm sick of it. But I've been carrying around this internal threat feeling for so long, and my muscles have been so tense, and I'm so tired that all of this anxiety inducing environment around me, it was just a heavy, heavy burden and responsibility all the time. So kind of turning this around a bit because I know like this, it feels bleak, right? When we're in the midst of it, it can feel bleak. It can feel panicky. It can feel hopeless. It can feel like it's the end of the world. And so bringing in a little bit of light here, a little bit of good news, the brain, I mentioned that it's really good at what it does, but it's also very, very adaptable and it stays that way for your entire life. We used to think that the brain stopped developing at a certain point and your personality was set and that's what you have and it only diminishes from there. But actually, this through science, through exploring neuroplasticity, we have found that that's not the case. We can continue learning new patterns all throughout our entire life until the moment we stop breathing. And so this means that our self-trust can grow, but also that internal sense of safety can keep developing. It's not too late. Your nervous system can still learn that it doesn't have to scan constantly. And one of the most important shifts, I think, that is made when we realize this and when we're healing in this way is realizing that we're not becoming a new person. We're not completely building a new personality and becoming someone else entirely. We're actually learning something that can feel harder. I'm just going to be honest. It's difficult at times to get to know that person who has been there all along, who has been the one experiencing the hypervigilance and the overthinking and the survival strategies. And that's the person, that's the you, the self that has been waiting to be listened to and understood and attuned to and validated and seen. And that can feel shameful. That can feel embarrassing, right? Like we're grown adults at this point. We should know how to do this. We should be able to function better. So I just really want to normalize here that number one, it's not a shameful thing, even though we feel like it might be. There's absolutely a reason that we are the way that we are. Our patterns make sense. And I say that all the time. Your patterns make sense. So just know that the shift that we're having in finding the person who was there all along and in unlearning those survival strategies, those don't always have to come in big cathartic healing moments. It doesn't have to come when some life-changing moment has happened and you do a complete 180. A lot of times the shift happens in smaller moments, in ordinary moments, and especially in repetition. And so a lot of times, and just speaking from my clients here in sessions, we'll notice looking back that maybe you were better able to pause before you answered a question. Maybe you took it a little less defensively and you noticed that maybe the other person was triggered coming into the conversation and it didn't upset you as badly as it might have. Or instead of immediately accommodating someone and saying, "Yep, you're right, let's do it your way," maybe you checked in with yourself first and you thought, that doesn't feel comfortable for me. Maybe I don't want to do that. For me, it looked like making a decision without asking everyone I knew what their opinion was on the decision. And the next step further from that is making the decision and then not agonizing over it later. And just, I'll deal with what comes. I'll deal with what's next and it's going to be okay. And so a lot of times these small moments are happening, and the more they happen, the more we build resilience, and the more we look back and recognize, okay, yes, I can do this. And so every time we look at a confusing conversation or a triggering moment and we say something didn't feel right about that, that doesn't mean that we failed in the moment. That means that we're becoming more and more self-aware every single time. And those moments can feel small. It can feel insignificant. But neurologically speaking, they're massive. They're huge because the brain is building completely new internal pathways, not going down the same path as before. New pathways where our self-awareness is becoming stronger. Listening to our internal signals becomes easier because they're becoming clearer. And over time, like I said, with repetition, that's when the shift happens and life starts to feel less like a maze that we're having to navigate and figure out the right way to get through, and more like a place that we're actually able to take a deep breath and say, okay, I'm a little bit less tense today. I think that I feel a little bit happier, or at least maybe I can handle this a little bit better. And looking back over time, that's when we notice the changes that have happened. We don't always notice them in these small moments. So I just want to say in this episode that if you've ever felt this strange feeling of wishing that things were easier, or wishing that, you had had someone who could help you understand things earlier, or feeling like, I wish life didn't have to be so complicated, just know that your experience with this really does make sense. Your brain adapted beautifully to the environment that it was in. And the fact that you're able to now notice this and reflect on these patterns actually tells us something really important. That means that your awareness about the situation and about yourself and about your patterns is growing. And the new pathways cannot begin until the awareness is there first. So the next step will be allowing yourself to learn these new things. It will be allowing yourself to build that self-trust and discover who you are, who you've always been outside of survival. And that can feel really difficult too. Those next moments of trusting yourself and not overthinking it, not doubting it, even wondering, if you can trust other people, because for a while you might still be getting similar feedback from the environment that you did before. That doesn't mean that you're failing or that you're doing it wrong. Maybe the environment hasn't quite caught up to your new decisions yet. It may take time to be having that reflected back to you through your new actions. So I had a few questions that I wanted to leave you with today at the end of this episode. Number one being, when do you notice yourself trusting your instincts the most? What environment is this in? What decisions is this surrounding? And then on the flip side of that is, when do you feel most disconnected from your internal signals? So what kind of environments or situations or people help you feel more connected to your instincts and help you feel less connected to your instincts? I want you to notice if there's moments when your body already knows something before your mind has time to catch up. Maybe start journaling about these moments and thinking about what small decisions, even the tiniest decisions that you could make this week, that could help you practice looking at these things from a place of curiosity rather than a place of fear, because self-trust isn't likely going to just arrive all at once and you're here and you've healed and you've made it. More typically, it's going to happen through very small moments of listening to yourself and getting really curious. And I have an actual hierarchy of self-awareness that I've built. It's a pyramid. Each level grows from the other, and curiosity is on this pyramid, but at the very, very base of it is worthiness, because we have to recognize that we're worthy of being curious, that we're worthy of noticing these things. So I actually put together a self-worth toolkit, a self-trust toolkit to help along the way. And one of these is a worthiness breakthrough, because a lot of times we can go into this thinking that maybe it's not even worth trying. Maybe it's hopeless. I don't even know how I'll ever break these patterns or move forward from this. If that resonates, I'm going to leave a link to the self-trust toolkit in the show notes. I'm also going to put a code in the show notes that you can use for a discount just for listening to this episode. And if you want to join us on our Tuesday evening women's call, it's open for registration. You're more than welcome to. This is just a place where women can come and have a safe space to set things down, to talk if you want to listen, get feedback, experience some free coaching, and just be in a place with other people who are working on patterns, working on awareness, and who get it. So just remember, you are more than worthy of this process. And every time that you pause and take a breath long enough to hear yourself a little bit more clearly, there's another small piece of you that actually feels like it's coming home. And that is what we're here for. That's the whole point of this show, the Reclamation Room. We are reclaiming those parts of us that maybe we thought were long gone. They're still here and they've just been waiting for you. So thank you for listening. We're going to release another guest episode here soon, and I cannot wait to check back in with you guys as we get to season 2. Season 2 is going to be a little bit different. We're going to have some episodes that are looking at very specific dynamics that came up for me and for others as we were healing from difficult relationship dynamics, and where to go from there. How can we apply that learning to real life? How can these help us become more of the person that we want to be in a way that's aligned with our values and authentic to who we want to be in the world? So stay tuned. Like I said earlier, check the show notes, join us on the call. And as always, please feel free to share with your friends, subscribe, leave a comment, email me, all the things. I'm here for feedback. So thanks for listening. I'll see you next week. Thanks for spending time in the Reclamation Room. Be sure to follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if this supported you, consider sharing it or leaving a review. You're not alone, and your reclamation is sacred.